In 1492, when Spain expelled all Jews from the country, Jews went all over Europe and northern Africa, but most namely they went to Turkey, because the Sultan at the time, Bayezid II, was extremely welcoming to the business knowledge that Jews brought along with them. But there were ships from Spain going to France, Italy, Holland, and northern Africa as well. And this was a rush job because they had 4 months only to leave Spain. This often resulted in dangerous ship conditions. They did not have a choice. There was no waiting for a better option to come. For example, one time 25 ships left Cadiz and St. Mary, Spain, and they were destined to port in North Africa, but 17 out of 25 of these ships sank. There was a violent storm that they all faced. The 8 remaining ships emergency docked at Malaga, Spain, and while there, 400 Jewish families converted to Christianity out of fear of facing the sea again. And the remaining 8 ships who carried on to North Africa, most of the Jewish crew were robbed or murdered by pirates. King John II of Portugal initially said no Jews were allowed in Portugal, but then 30 prominent Jewish families struck up a deal with him. And this deal stated that for 100 cruzados, which was a form of currency in Portugal at the time, other Jewish families could enter and legally stay in Portugal. And for the poorer Jews, he would accept 8 cruzados for 8 months of stay. Then they had to leave the country. And around 100,000 Jews took this offer up. King John II said that he would provide ships to remove them from Portugal eventually. That never happened. So when the 8 months was up for the poorer Jews, King John II sold the Jews into slavery who overstayed their welcome. Hundreds of Jewish children were stolen and taken to the island of St. Thomas off the coast of Africa, almost all of which died. After King John II died, a king named Manuel came into power, and he wanted to marry Fern and Izzy's daughter. Fern and Izzy said, that's not going to happen unless you get rid of all of the Jews that King John II took in. So in March of 1497, King Manuel ordered all Jewish children aged 4 to 14 be forcibly baptized, hoping that would force the Jewish adults to stay, and instead 20,000 Jews gathered in Lisbon to be deported. And again, if those Jews did not leave in time, they were declared as slaves and sold. After 1497, there were no longer any open Jews in the Iberian Peninsula. All that were left were secret practicing Jews, which again were referred to as Marranos. And these Marranos were fleeing Portugal even after the 1497 date. And this was severely affecting Portugal's economy. So in 1499, Manuel banned Marranos from leaving Portugal. The king who followed Manuel was named John III, and John III wanted to marry Fern and Izzy's granddaughter. And this is where talks of a Portuguese Inquisition began. And on September 20th, 1540, the first auto da fe was held in Lisbon, Portugal. Now, with the discovery of the New World, many Jews also took the risk of traveling to South America, primarily Brazil, as Brazil was the only area in South America controlled by the Portuguese and not the Spanish. And most Jews who landed in Brazil landed around the town of Bahia. In the 16th century, sugar was very expensive and was only used for medicinal purposes. And these Brazilian Marranos were the first to import sugarcane and start the sugar trade in Brazil. In 1516, the first sugar mill was open, run and operated by Marranos, and by the end of the century, there were over 200 sugar mills, mostly owned and operated by secret Jews. However, Brazilian churches did have the authority to send secret Jews back to Lisbon, Portugal if they were discovered. So many Marranos also fled Brazil eventually. Now, some Spanish Marranos did risk going to Mexico, but in 1571, the first Inquisition was introduced in Mexico, and 3 years later, the first auto da fe was held in Mexico, the first auto da fe in the New World. Many secret Jews also fled to the Caribbean, but the Caribbean was also largely controlled by Spain, so that also was a risky move. But around 1636, the Dutch gained control of a city in Portugal called Recife, the governor of which was a man named Johann Moritz van Nassau. But this only lasted until about 1646, and the Portuguese regained control of Recife. Again, these Marranos had to scatter, and coincidentally, a French ship was heading towards the colony of New Amsterdam, which is modern-day New York. And 23 Jews from Recife, Brazil, convinced this French captain to take them along with him, promising him funds once they arrived. Now, there were a few scattered Jews in the U.S. at this time, but in September of 1654, this ship entered the New York harbor, and this group of 23 Jews was considered the first immigration of a group of Jews into the United States.